Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustment of the Township of Union, which is being held pursuant to the Open Public Meeting Law, C-231, Laws of New Jersey, dated 1975. Notice of this meeting was advertised in the local source and/or the Star Ledger, the two newspapers of record, and notice has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building adjacent to the municipal clerk's office. Roll call.
Mr. Wiley.
Here.
Ms. Martins.
Here.
Mr. Bentavegana.
Present.
Ms. Scott is absent. Mr. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. McNeil. Here. Mr. Graves.
Here.
Ms. Ricketts.
Here.
Mr. Champy.
Here. There being a quorum present, this meeting is now declared open. At this time, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes from the January 10th meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes of the January 10th meeting and dispense with their reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Are there any communications?
There are no communications.
Before we begin tonight's meeting, for the benefit of the public, I have a few announcements to make. First off, the board would like to welcome Ms. Nadej Ricketts, the lady to my left, as our newest member. Ms. Ricketts was appointed alternate number 2, effective January 1st, 2024. Ms. Ricketts had previously served on the planning board for several years, and the board wishes to welcome her, and we look forward to working with you throughout the year. Second, Mr. Richard Graves will be our new alternate number 1. And lastly, Mr. Anthony Benavenga will be our new acting chairperson. Again, congratulations to Nadej, Anthony, and Richard. Continuing with tonight's meeting, our first order of business is the adoption of a resolution for calendar number 3426-2155 Route 22 Realty, LLC, located at 2135 through 2145 and 2155 Route 22 West, Block 4003, Lots 7 and Lots 9.01. And it was for the alteration and conversion of the showroom to a maintenance center. We're going to adopt this resolution. Board members, you've all had a chance to read the resolution. Are there any board members at this time who would like to comment, make changes or modifications to the resolution as it is written? Hearing none, may I have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution?
Mr. Chairman, I move that this board adopt the resolution as read and modified as accurately memorializing the previous findings of this board.
Second motion.
Roll call.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Graves.
Yes.
Mr. McNeil.
Yes.
Mr. Wiley.
Yes.
Mr. Champy.
Yes. Our
Mr.
next
Chairman, please note I was absent for that meeting.
So noted. Our next order of business is calendar number 3427, Grip Tight Tools, located at 1060 Commerce Avenue, Block 4304, Lot 3, and it's for offices, a warehouse, and outdoor storage. Counselor, would you like to begin?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Stephen Merman. I am on counsel to the law firm of Jabberbaum, Wargaff, Hicks, Kahn, Wickstrom, and Simmons. I get paid extra to get through all the names. In actuality, I'm with the office, Steve Hale's office here in Union, and we're here tonight on behalf of our client, Grip Tight Tools, with regard to a very, it's not really an interesting application. I'm not going to give you that this is one of the best applications you're going to see this year. It's a basic application, and the reason it's a basic application is because we have a client who's been operating at this location since 2015, and over the last several years has actually kind of outgrown the space. As a result of that, some storage issues arose with storage being maintained on the outside. Unfortunately, that required Mr. Manguso and his crack staff to come out and examine the property, and as a result of that, our clients are now here to address these issues. We're here today under a D variance, obviously, otherwise this board wouldn't have any jurisdiction, but I want to address, before we get into anything, my notice with regard to this. My notice that we did for this application was for a D1 use variance. And the reason it was drafted that way was based upon the communications that we received from staff here, that this was in fact a Board of Adjustment issue, and it was a D1 use variance as a result of the recent amendments to your ordinance involving the CI zone. There is a warehousing component to our application, and I'm going to let my planner go through all of this, but I just want to deal with this right now on the notice issue because it could create some questions. We did not notice for a D2 variance. We noticed for a D1 variance. D1 being a brand-new use variance, D2 being an expansion of existing non-conforming use. Fact of the matter is, we were doing what we're doing now before the ordinance was amended. So it technically is a D2, but because we were notified by the municipality that it was going to require a D1 variance, we advertised for the D1 variance. Now, I had to actually look up this word earlier tonight. The word is subsumed, right, as opposed to assumed, but the D2 variance is subsumed basically when you issue the notice for the D1 variance. And I'll let Mr. Pansula address that if he feels it needs to be addressed. So with that said, at this point, I would like to call our first witness, and that is, unless Mr. Pansula, you want to address the issue on the notice?
Now that I have a mic. Yes, there was this issue of the D1, D2. I spoke with Mr. Hale, actually. I didn't reach Mr. Merman, but I think you're covered on the notice because of the more stringent D1. I believe technically, legally, since the warehousing component is there, it is a expansion of an existing non-conforming use, which makes it permissible. It's an easier burden for the applicant, as it were, so they covered their notice through the more stringent D1. So we'll hear the testimony. Jurisdictionally, they're covered. I think Mr. Hale's office, as it usually does, covered the bases. So the notice is broad enough and inclusive enough to allow the matter to be heard, and we'll have the planner address it. I'm sure Mr. Doherty will be ready to do that. So I don't see a problem going forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pansula. So let me just set up the evening's activities. We're going to try to run through the testimony as quickly as we can. Tonight I have with me the applicant's representative, Walid Nakala, who is the president and CEO of Grip Tight Tools. I have with us Joe Bashi, who's an engineer with EKA Associates, and in the cleanup position is going to be Alexander Doherty of Doherty Planning and Development, LLC, and he will be providing the planning testimony for this evening. So without further ado, I'd like to call Mr. Nakala.
Just for the record, too, council and members of the board, I did mark A1, the application as it was submitted by Mr. Hale's office with its supporting details, and I also marked A2, the EKA site plan, which included a one-page survey. So there's 4 pages total are collectively marked as A2, the EKA site plan with survey. So A1, A2 for the record. Can the witness hear me?
Yes, sir, I can.
I'm the board attorney, Rob Pansula. Can I ask you to just swear or affirm that the testimony you can provide this evening is the truth and the whole truth?
I swear.
And for the record, just spell your name with your business affiliation.
Sure, my name is Walid, W-A-L as in Larry, I-D as in David. Last name is Nakla, N-A-K-H-L-A. I am the CEO of Grip Tight Tools.
Thank you.
Sir, can you give us a very brief overview of what Grip Tight Tools does?
Sure, Grip Tight Tools is a brand for some hardware products that are imported and distributed to some of our brick-and-mortar hardware stores. We've been in business since 2001, and we have a couple of small brands associated with Grip Tight Tools, like Plumtech and Pro Era. So we're trying to do our business professionally, and we bring a good quality product to our end users.
At this location at 1060 Commerce, what are the hours of operation?
7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m.
And how many employees are on site at any given time?
13 employees at this moment.
And there are other employees that work for Grip Tight Tools, is that correct?
Correct. We do have a couple of other locations, and we have salespeople that work off-site from home and in their hometowns.
So overall, you employ about 28 people, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, are there any evenings or weekend activities at the site?
No,
So this is Monday through Friday operation?
correct.
The goods that you refer to, are these domestic or imported goods?
Most of the goods are imported, but our customers are all local within the United States.
Now, amongst the items that you sell through this location, do you sell stone blocks and brick items?
That's one of the product line that we carry, but they all come crated and pre-packed and ready to sell.
Now, I've already, obviously for the board, I already indicated that we had some issues with some outdoor storage. Could you tell the board basically what types of materials are being stored on the outside of the building or were being stored, and we are asking permission to store outside the building now?
Sure, there is two categories of that. We have some trucks that comes to pick up the stuff, and they don't have a lot of time. They only give us 5 minutes because they have other pickups. So we have to have the crates outside ready for them to pick it up. So sometimes we take it 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:30, and they don't show up in time. They come an hour or 2 hours late. So we have those crates waiting to be loaded on the property side. The second category is once in a while, we have those crates of stone. We take it to the flatbed outside in order for the flatbed to come and pick it up, and they probably 15, 20 crates. And then the flatbed doesn't show up in time, and they end up coming tomorrow. So, you know, if somebody from the township come and look at those crates and they see them in the morning without fence, so they didn't look that pretty for the township, and that's what we, you know.
So the material that we're talking about, that was being stored on the side of the building where we are now proposing to put a fence up, is that correct?
Correct.
And what is the purpose of the fence?
The purpose of the fence is basically to create a buffer, so nobody can see what's happening behind the fence. It's better visual for the township. I think it's going to bring more value. If you look at our building, it's beautiful, and we want to keep it nice and clean and sealed. We don't want somebody to see our forklift driver, or, you know. So it's better for the township from the main perspective to make it look better. We have an animal hospital in the area, and so we want to make it look better and create a buffer.
Right. Now, Grip Tight Tools or a related entity is actually the owner of the building, is that correct?
It's a different LLC, but I'm the owner. I'm the sole owner of it. Yes.
Right. So you're coming here as the owner of the property and the operator of the property, and coming to the municipality where you have been operating now for almost 7 years. And the reason you're here ultimately is because you want to make sure that the visual effect of your operation does not have a negative impact upon the surrounding properties. Is that
100%.
really what we're here for do tonight?
100%.
Okay. I really have no further questions of this witness at this time. I would reserve my right to ask additional questions based upon any questions from the board or members of the public.
Are there any board members with questions for Mr. Nakal?
I do have a question concerning the employees. You have 13 and you're providing for 10 spots. Is it the intent that those employees that don't make it in that lot are actually the 7? Because I guess you have the one electronic vehicle and an ADA spot, which are reserved, so you really have 7. So the other 6 employees will be parking on the street, or are you making any other provisions for them to park?
Some of the employees are local, and about 2 of them are local, so they just, one of them walks and the other one also, we have a lot of people don't, have a days off. Not the 13 employees are not really 13. If you look on average, we're probably going to be at 11 to 12 employees. So the people take day off, take vacation time, and additionally, I don't know if it would be permissible. If people can still park behind that fence, we're going to have a lot of space. So I don't know if it's going to be allowed. That's a question for Mr. Hell.
But they won't clutter the access in and out of that.
We're going to design that fence.
Or park on the lawn, or park in the electronic car charge stations or in the ADA spots.
definitely not. We're going to follow the rules and we'll make sure everybody's compliance.
Any other board members?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. You noticed, you said you had pickups randomly each day. What kind of products do they pick up? Do you deal with any liquid products?
No, it's all hardware products,
It's all hardware products?
tools and hardware.
So there's no IBC totes or anything back there?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Are there any other board members that would like to question?
Can I just be clear on the parking aspect? Is there any retail aspect to your business, or is it simply warehousing and truck pickup?
We only business to business. We don't have any walk-in traffic. We don't interfere with the public. Our business is only with stores, owners that have a resale certificate, and, they will resell the product. All the
Okay.
orders come by fax or emails, yeah.
So there's no display area or welcoming of the public to come in and access the property? Because that'll answer, for the board's benefit, I think, some of the parking issues. If you can control the employee usage, there's less of a concern that the public actually will be pulling in and out regularly. That doesn't happen, is what you're
Sure,
saying.
we're actually don't have any public walk-in traffic
Okay.
at all. Even our customers don't come to the site, yep.
Thank you.
Are there any other board members with questions for Mr. Nakal? Hearing none, are there any members of the public that would like to question the testimony that Mr. Nakal has given? Hearing none, Mr. Merman, your next witness.
Thank you. At this time, I will call Joseph Bacci.
Appreciate it, thank you.
And if you'd be so kind as to throw the site plan up on the board, we'd appreciate that. You got that, Joe? There you go.
Mr. Bocci, could I ask you to swear or affirm that the testimony you provide this evening is the truth and the whole truth?
Yes, sir.
And for the record, state and spell your name with your business affiliation.
Joseph Bacci, B-A-C-H-I. I work for EKA Associates, 328 Park Ave, Scotch Plains, New Jersey.
Would you be
What's
so
that?
kind as to give us the
Joseph.
benefit of your educational background?
Has there
Yeah.
been any change since you were qualified before this board less than a month ago?
No change. Still same
Cut to the
person,
chase.
license in good standing. Nothing happened to the license. Still a
Mr.
2012
Chairman, I suggest we can note that for the record.
We'll accept his credentials.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Pinson.
Thank you.
That's half my outline. Joe, could you run through the site plan? You prepared the site plan that's up on the board right now and has already been marked as A2 for purposes of identification. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
All right. Joe, why don't you run through, start with page 1, and we could work to page 4, and then we'll highlight, please, the variances that are being requested with regard to this application.
Yes, sir. So starting on sheet 1, our basic cover sheet, we have the zoning map shown, key map, schedule general requirements. Touching on the zoning map, you'll see the site is bound to the northeast by, I'll zoom in. You have a PSE&G electrical substation. I always struggle with the touchscreen. To the northeast, lot 2 there, with the elementary school parking lot as well, a little beyond that. To the southeast, you have Commerce Ave. There's other commercial properties in the area across Commerce. Same goes for the southwest there, commercial properties, lot 4.02 and below that. And then here to the northwest, an existing rail line. So just to set the scene of where we are. Get a little more detail, I'm going to go to the last sheet, sheet 1 of 1, the survey. Just give a little more detail on the site, what's existing out there now, and, as Mr. Merman stated, what's, not really changing much. So it's an irregularly shaped lot, somewhat rectangular with a couple twists and turns on the if you notice in this area here. The total area, about a little over 49,000 square feet, 1.14 acres, frontage of about 156 feet on Commerce. You have a depth of about 330 feet versus 400 required. That's not changing. That's an existing variance. Same with the width, about 152 linear feet, 200 is required. That's not changing. Nothing about the lot is changing. You have a little over 28,000 square foot masonry building on site with parking facilities in the front, storage on the side here. Again, not planning on changing any of that. The storage and parking is a combination of mostly asphalt with some concrete areas. You have an existing loading dock in the rear, shown here. Rear of the building, rear of the site. That's about it for the existing conditions. Mostly taken up by the building and asphalt.
Before you move
Sure,
on,
go ahead.
the existing loading dock, there's nothing that's proposed relative to that existing loading dock, correct?
Correct.
I'll let you move on to what we are proposing.
Sure. If you direct your attention to sheet 2, this is our proposed site plan. As you can see, you don't see many changes here. The main thing is the proposed fence, kind of towards the middle of the site here. That's going to be a chain link fence with privacy slats. That's going to provide screening for the existing and, proposed outdoor storage on site, which would be, again, in this area of the site. Going through some of the variances, there's, you guys have a list of the existing variances. We are not intensifying any of them except one minor intensification. Offset from the existing parking offset from the building, it's about 5.5 feet now. You see, we're reducing that to 4.9 for the EV space. The reason being is we want to get a proper 24-foot wide drive aisle here. And with that, we're just twisting that spot a little bit, getting it, just about a half a foot closer to the building. The other improvements to the site, bringing it up to ADA compliance. You'll see the ADA space located in the front. And if you see here, in the existing condition, you actually have a space kind of in the right-of-way. So we're pushing that off. So you have 0 setback from the right-of-way. Currently, we're pushing that to 2.68 feet in this location. Offset here, 2.11 feet for this parking space here. So while it's an existing variance, we're trying to make the site, a little bit better here with that. You have some bollards to protect the building and the proposed EV charging station. What other variances do we have? No increase in impervious coverage, no increase in building coverage. That's remaining the same. The front yard, existing 24.6 feet. That's not changing, existing variance. Rear yard setback 14.0 feet. Again, that is not changing. So really, engineering-wise, it boils down to installation of a fence for screening of the outdoor storage, and we're improving the parking.
Let me stop you here for a minute. So, and I'm assuming that one member of the board or the like is going to ask us this question, so we might as well get it out of the way now. How come we're not proposing any of the parking behind the fence itself, where we're creating the storage area?
Well, we want to maintain, some flexibility with the storage, moving of materials, et cetera, et cetera. So really flexible.
But there would be sufficient room there, if necessary, to add an additional parking spot or two behind there for employees specifically.
That is correct.
If required. But the idea behind this basically was to leave as much of the area available for the outdoor storage and not.
That's correct. That's correct. And my understanding is the idea, they're not going to have storage 24/7 filling up that whole area, but they want some flexibility to move, their material around.
All right.
I think that really covers the site plans. I think I touched on all the variances. I think parking was already discussed. We have 9 physical spaces with 1 EV credit. You get 10. That's an increase from 7. So while 16 is still required, again, we're not intensifying the variances, and we're trying to, reducing the intensity of the existing variances.
You had an opportunity to review the January 10th, 2024 correspondence from Collier's Engineering and Design, did you not?
Yes, I did.
I want to specifically draw your attention to the comments related to grading and drainage. Anything that we're going to be doing on the property in any way affect the existing drainage and stormwater management?
No, it won't. And we can, go out and get grades to prove that, but right now, stormwater is flowing nicely off-site, sheet flowing to the street as it should, and we're not doing anything to stop that.
There's also a requirement at 6.4, the applicant shall submit a lighting plan for the parking lot to demonstrate compliance. Any issue with providing that as a resolution compliance issue?
No issue providing that, and I'm sure there'll be, no issue providing adequate lighting.
I have no further questions for this witness. I reserve my right to ask additional questions based upon questions from the board and/or the public. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any board members that would like to question the testimony Mr. Bocci has given? Hearing none, are there any members of the public that would like to question the testimony that Mr. Bocci has given? Hearing none, Counselor, your next witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I would call Alexander Doherty. Sorry.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you provide this evening is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
And for the record, state and spell your name with your business affiliation.
Alexander Dougherty, the last name is Dougherty, 54 Main Street, Chatham, New Jersey, professional planner for the applicant.
Thank you.
Mr. Pansula, before I ask my witness for his credentials, he has been qualified before this board previously.
Has there been any change in your I know Mr. Bocci was here less than a month ago, that's why he was fresh, but Mr. Doherty, has there been any change in your credentials from the last time you were qualified and
No,
served
my
as an
license-
expert before this board?
My license are good and current.
We'll accept Mr. Dougherty's
Thank you,
credentials.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Pansula.
Thank you. For this evening, I've prepared two exhibit packets, a little unusual from my normal one, but I think it's important for the board as we discussed difference between the D1 and the D2. The essence of a D2 is site betterment, but nonetheless, I think we can satisfy the D1 and get a little more clarity on the warehousing and distribution language, but for purposes of satisfying a D2 for the board, I prepared an exhibit packet, kind of where we were and where we're at now as it relates to the site.
And let me just stop you right here. These photographs that you're showing us right now, those are not photographs that you took.
No,
Correct.
these photographs are from the applicant some years ago when he first acquired the property.
Mr. Pansula, what I'd like to do is I'd like to call back the applicant just for purposes of verifying.
We'll note it for the record that Mr. Doherty can qualify the exhibit. Just how many pages total are, we'll note it as A3 for the record.
There's 4 slides to
Four
this.
slides.
I called it the before and after.
And when you're talking about before and after, this is 2015 when the applicant first took the property and then the renovations and the like that they've done since they've owned the property, correct? Thank you.
So, for purposes of these slides, as council stated, we can see here, there's a fairly good amount of construction happening in the first top photos here on slide 1, and a lot of debris. The bottom 2 are, reflective, I believe, of, the restrooms and the neon green. This is going to be interesting. Let's do this. Slide 2 here is another set of 4 photos. You kind of see the exterior condition of the site in the top photos, the top 2 photos here. It's pretty weathered and tethered. The bottom two photos, you can kind of see some concrete being poured. You can see on the bottom right here, some gentlemen on scaffolding. Looks like they're doing some electrical and HVAC work. Slide 3 is kind of what's manifested all that hard work. As we kind of see, we have a fairly beautiful building. I'd like to say it's probably the nicest building on Commerce Avenue from a curb appeal. A lot of work went into a lot of restoration to kind of bring this building back. And, you know, the top two photos show the exterior conditions, you know, the facade elevations, the panels, and, you know, the materials used, the walkway, the grand entrance, you know, the grip-tight tools insignia above the door. And the bottom two are reflective of, I guess, what would have been that green restroom into a kind of a modern lavatory system here with the appropriate materials used. And then the last slide is only 3, but kind of shows you the lobby, conference rooms, you know, some office chairs and so forth. For sake of this slide deck here, it's really to kind of show that the applicant as well as the site have come a long way, and certainly, you know, in the essence of why we're here, the outside storage is certainly not appealing on the corridor, though it is allowed in the CI zone. It does have regulations about being screened. So I think that's where, you know, how we ended up here, was some of the outside storage spilled out of the gate that's existing there now. And then the warehousing conversation kind of came in and the ordinance changed. So we're here. But nonetheless, I think it's appropriate that we're here. Gives the board and the community a little bit better handle of what's actually at the site as it relates to the operations. So with that, I'll close this tab and I'll open up the slide deck for a little bit more of site orientation purposes and where we're at. So if we want to mark this one separately. This consists of 7 slides. Slide 1 is the zoning map. You kind of see right in the middle here, the red circle and the red arrow. It's approximately right where the property is located. It's in that gray area, which is reflective to the left, the legend here of the CI zone. The next slide. It's more of a top-down aerial view of the site. This is from NJDEP's GeoWeb. Properties outlined in red. What's interesting to note is the properties off to the right. Those are schools. So we do have a bit of a buffer with elevation as well as the electrical smaller lot. It's all set to the rear. It's not our adjacent neighbor, but you know we do have some adequate separation by way of additional lot and the large parking lot, which you'll see later on. But nonetheless, it is a small portion here that is the CI zone that still exists on Commerce Avenue. Again, this is the site I took myself on January 6th with the drone visiting the site. As you can see, we do have some parking up there in the front, as described, probably a little bit of overhang by the engineer into the right-of-way. Took the drone out, we kind of spun it around, kind of see there's a black gate back there with some material. So, and you have that loading bay off in the back. This structure only has one loading dock, as the engineer pointed out, and staging and equipment and deliveries. Really, you know, they were doing it outside, and you know, so the outside storage component, as I stated before, is really what brought the attention to the site and the change of the ordinance. But what, as you heard the engineer, really what we're trying to do here is just put the fence in the front, you know, remove that, have that screening ability, if you will, and keep this drive aisle open with those vans and box trucks for shipments. With talking to the applicant, if we can see from a bird's eye view on slide 5, really the ideal scenario would be just to get a little bit more storage probably out to where the existing trash cans and enclosure dumpsters are, which also should have been within an enclosure. So providing the fence up in the front allows us to actually fulfill that obligation by screening the dumpster enclosure. You know, they've kind of outgrown that small little storage facility off into the rear. The next slide, the last couple slides, it's reflective of our neighboring properties. As you can see on the bottom left, we do have, I believe it's an electrical station, and then we have the large parking lot towards the elementary school going up Commerce Avenue. So we do have some adequate spacing and buffering from, that elementary school, but nonetheless, we'd like to screen that. This is a heavily traversed road. Commerce Avenue has become almost a destination location with the elementary school, the grocer, the TD Bank at the corner, and I believe it's a CVS or Walgreens in front of the grocer. The last slide here is a 4-photo slide to kind of give you an overall understanding of the built environment. Top left is a mechanic shop. It is what it is. In that photo, it's an automotive use. The top right is another neighboring property that exists on Commerce Avenue, as well as the bottom left. And that bottom right photo shows you the black roof building. There is your bank. You have, I believe it's the CVS right across Commerce Avenue. And I believe it's an Aldi behind that as well, again with the school. So the community comes down Commerce Avenue, so we want to shield the operations and the material that sits outside and come into compliance with that regards. But going to the essence of the variance tonight.
Before you do that, could you just give the board a background in the materials that you reviewed in preparing for your testimony here today?
Certainly. I've reviewed the site plan. I've reviewed the Collier's report. I've reviewed the master plan extensively, and with that being said, the various ordinances as it pertains to the CI zone and the outside storage language and the definition language for how we define warehousing and distribution.
You said something very interesting to me earlier in part of our preparation about the extensive nature of the master plan here in Union. So I really wish you would just reiterate that statement that you made to me about the extensive nature of this master plan.
It's one of my favorite master plans. It's about 370 pages. There's nothing left unsaid in that master plan. That master plan talks in great deal about e-commerce. In fact, it's mentioned approximately 19 times throughout the master plan. It talks about the commercial corridors. It talks about office uses and so forth. With that being said, the master plan recognizes that office uses are kind of, in this particular setting, larger office uses are kind of being adaptively reused to provide for commercial industrial manners, because they are kind of, an element that stands off to itself. As I say that, on page 58 of the master plan, there's a section called Challenges and Opportunities, and in fact, they talk about reimagining existing sites and structures, and I'll quote, reimagining how land use should be also responsive to the broader economic, environmental, and social trends to promote smart growth development that is sustainable, resilient, and desirable to residents, consumers, and businesses. So that, again, that's kind of hooked into the idea that the office uses and the larger office housing has seen an adaptive reuse, if you will. From a physical standpoint, given the rail yard in the rear, that rail line, Commerce Avenue historically probably has seen more of a manufacturing industrial face here, but I want to note that office use component is allowed in this zone. With the removal of warehousing and storage that was just passed recently, I believe in December of 2002. 22. You kind of leave a void in the language. As I looked in the local ordinances, we define warehousing and distribution. Buildings used primarily for the receipt, storage, and distribution of goods and cargo. Warehousing and distribution centers are not open to the public for retail sales. That's kind of also what industrial sites are as well. We did not define industrial, so I went online to the lawinsider.com, the dictionary version of Law Insider for definitions pertaining to industrial uses. And they define it as industrial use means the use of land, buildings, or structures designed for the purpose of manufacturing, assembling, making, preparing, inspecting, ornamenting, finishing, treating, altering, repairing, warehousing, or storing, or adapting for sale. any goods, substance, articles, or things, or any part thereof, and the storage of building and construction equipment and materials, as distinguished from the buying and selling of commodities and supplying for personal services. So this definition does not include agricultural use. Industrial use is inherently connected to storing goods and distributing goods. As a planner, I understand that the temperature of e-commerce and larger distribution centers, the Amazon warehousing and that, in that regards. Many municipalities are, hunkering down and trying to get a better handle on these larger warehouses and distribution centers for e-commerce purposes, though your master plan recognizes e-commerce as an opportunity to adaptively reuse zones and to capitalize on the economic markets. What I will say is this particular structure doesn't really lend itself to that particular narrative. And in fact, in your master plan, as we talk about e-commerce, on page 74, they actually show you a photo of a distribution center. So as a planner and understanding the land use environment, I concur with the municipality to try to get a better handle on that, because there's quite a bit of structures in the municipality, the township, that could lend itself to some e-commerce distribution and all that freight and truck and just the impact on the road network and so forth, and just becoming that hub. I will tell you that when we look at this particular structure, I don't think that's the case here. I think this zone will lend itself primarily to office use and maybe some commercial, because industrial, again, is inherently hooked to storage and distribution. I think as we kind of see how this unfolds over the next couple of years, as just my recommendation that maybe we define what e-commerce is and prohibit that in the zone versus just taking out warehousing and distribution, because a lot of manufacturing facilities are going to have that component. We are here for a warehousing and distribution variance, and I do think we meet the intent of the D1 use variance, as well as the D2, which is site betterment. We are cleaning up that site, coming into compliance, and keeping that corridor visually appealing. It is the intent of the applicant to have a aesthetically pleasing site, as we can see in that top right photo still on the screen, and the bottom left photo on the screen. Some of these existing buildings and landscape plans here, do complement each other, and that is kind of the neighborly way on Commerce Avenue. But nonetheless, the D1 use variance consists of 4 parts of the Medici test. Part 1 is site suitability. I believe the site is particularly suited for a warehousing use here by the condition and the context. The condition-wise, the site was under this ownership for nearly a decade, as well as historically already been used as a warehousing and distribution center. Though we don't operate in that narrative, the use does not alter the physical structure in the public realm. This is a minor exterior retrofit for a gate for outside storage, which is permitted within the CI zone. When I look at the context, the proposed use and its location in the context of Commerce Avenue and the streetscape and the fabric continues the commercial and industrial massing along the corridor, is well placed and well suited amongst other pre-existing structures and uses that will have some of that component. This particular property, as I stated before, in the context, has 1 bay. So I don't think we really have a high volume of freight and distribution leaving in a warehouse manner and distribution manner. As the applicant stated before, the hours of operation, they close at 4:30. They're not open on weekends. It's a fairly modest staff, about 12 employees. So I don't think we have a huge worry as far as intensity and what a warehousing distribution center, as we know today, can bring. Part number 2 of that 4-part test is special reasons. The use in the application promote purposes of land use law. The project will promote the general welfare with the positive aesthetics by way of the upgrades to the exterior and screening of outside storage space in a commercial and industrial zone. We also have an efficient use of land, and with that being said, the product here is existing. We have the ability to store outside. We certainly would like to use that. in that capacity, as we saw in the previous slide before and after. I think the interior of the building is too nice to store things inside. That's just my opinion. When we look at the continued investment into the site, adds value and quality to the site, which is also adds value and quality to the surrounding neighborhood and corridor. This is an opportunity to bring the space more into compliance with the township's vision for the corridor and to get a better feel for what type of warehousing is taking place here in distribution. All of that being said, we promote the purposes of miscellaneous law, purpose A, G, I, and M. Part 3 of that is the public impact, or known as the negative criteria. Relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public or the zone plan. The site impacts, in my opinion, are none. As we've heard the engineer testify to, we have existing variances. Those variances remain, and in fact, we've improved a few of them. The site has operated in this way for many, many years. We have an issue as far as logistics, that storing and staging, with that one bay, they prefer to do it outside. And unfortunately, we need the gate to be a little further up front to have that in compliance. The use itself mirrors nicely and enhances the already established commercial and industrial zone, as well as improving the relationship to the nearby school by screening that to all the community members and family members that traverse up and down that road. With that being said, this use is limited in its potential to grow. What's behind that gate has to remain behind that gate. The commercial use, as well as I said before, is limited to hours of operation, 7:30 to 4:30, Monday through Friday, as discussing with the applicant. And, is limited with staffing. It's just approximately 13 employees for this location. Part 4 of the mid-use test is the zone plan impact. I don't believe this will cause a substantially adverse effect on the zone and the integrity of the zone, and will call for a rezone. Again, in 2022 of December, they took out warehousing and distribution. Manufacturing is still allowed here. Industrial is still allowed here. I think this use and the operations fall more in line with that than what we believe warehousing and distribution to be. I don't think it's going to erode at that. It's not tenement to a rezone. And part of that is reconciling that with the master plan. And I went through the master plan extensively. I would concur that warehousing is encouraged in your master plan, taking action to on the economic markets to bring in e-commerce and distribution is actually also encouraged. But that master plan at the same time also talks about being able to pivot and have and adapt to the changing environments and so forth. So I think the municipality has done that in that favor to protect the community, as we saw with other municipalities what e-commerce and distribution can do to a community in that fabric. So I would just encourage the municipality as time goes forward to maybe consider what other municipalities do and define uses specifically and call those out. If it's not prohibitively expressed, it's prohibited in the zone. So I would just encourage to have that. But nonetheless, I do think the board can move favorably. There will be no substantial detriment to the public or the zone plan. I think this application, by adding that gate and improving the parking and bringing it into ADA compliance and the EV, we do promote language in the master plan for sustainable electrical vehicle, economic growth, and so forth. I think the statutory criteria for relief has been met. Approval will be warranted under either the D1 or the D2, and the D2 being site betterment, not whether the use belongs, because it is a pre-existing use.
I have no further questions for this witness. I reserve my right to ask additional questions based upon any questions from the board or the public. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any board members that would like to question Mr. Doherty's testimony? Hearing none, are there any members of the public that would like to question Mr. Doherty's testimony? Hearing none, are there any members of the public that would like to comment on this application or have concerns? Hearing none, Counselor, would you like to
Very briefly, Mr. Chairman.
Before he,
Mr. McNeil?
In the discussion, I didn't hear any discussion of the existing fence between the storage area and the access road to the electronic transmission station back there. Is there any intent to do any improvements on that fence, if there is an existing fence along that north side?
There is no intention to work on that area at all right now. if, when the municipality comes out and inspects the property, if they feel that additional fencing should be added, that certainly will be something that the applicant would consider. But for now, we have not had any issues in that back fenced-in area, and the intent is to leave it exactly the way it is.
So there is no existing fence along that access road?
When you say access road, you mean
From
the
Commerce
path, the
down to
pathway
Yes,
to the loading dock?
yes. So we're gonna have gates, double
Right.
gates, and
Okay.
on that north side. is
Could we
there
bring up a
fencing down
picture of that, Alex?
Could zoom in a little
on
bit.
that right side?
Zoom in for you guys.
Are you talking about separating the site from the PSE&G substation?
Well, that whole side, to prevent any spillover of storage.
Right.
There's an
Into that.
elevation drop. There's like a little retaining wall already built into the site.
There's retaining wall there.
The wall is
Oops.
above grade right
Yeah.
now, is what you're saying.
Yes.
The substation is elevated above.
And, Joe, come on up.
Yeah.
Let's make the record.
Sorry,
Let's make the record
dawned
clear.
on me when
No,
you-
I just want to make sure the record's clear. For the record, I'm recalling Mr. Pache
Okay.
to answer the question.
I'll use Mr. Doherty's photo here, but you can see there's I'll zoom in even more. You can see there's a retaining wall along the side here. So that's the area you were referring
Yes.
to? Yeah, and that, it keeps going up.
Yeah, from the
And
photo, I can see that there. It
Yeah.
looks like a little swale area between the wall and the road.
yeah, a little bit of a dip here, but yeah, you have I can't confirm, the applicant indicated it's 8 foot high back there. I can't confirm that at this time, but
At
then,
least half the height of the dumpsters that's there, so,
correct, yeah. And then PSE&G has a fence, not that we would want to
okay.
lean up against that,
Yeah,
or,
the concern was that maybe if it was at the same elevation, there may be some spillover on the storage.
yeah, I would say that
But-
the wall's preventing that.
Okay.
Well, I did have a question as well. These dumpsters, are they gonna remain there, or are they gonna move at some point in time?
They will remain on site, they'll be behind the proposed fence. I don't think they're going to remain exactly that location, but the exact location hasn't been determined at this time. If you like, we could put the location on during resolution compliance, if we are approved, we could put a proposed location on there.
Okay, and then the
Sub-
fencing itself, is it gonna remain open just during the business operation hours, and then afterwards, they're gonna close it off, or how is that gonna work with the fence?
Yeah, off hours, it'll be closed and locked. It'll be open during business hours, and then on, garbage collection, if garbage is collected earlier, they'll leave it open. But generally, will be locked and closed.
Okay, because one of
Off
the
hour.
concerns that you guys had was in reference to sometimes people may come and pick up their items after business hours once you guys are closed, right?
Yeah.
So how is that gonna work if the gates are closed and the storage is behind there?
There's obviously going to have to be some adjustment to that, and it's always a work in progress when you have something like this, but the idea behind this fence is to screen the storage area from public view. So for the most part, this fence is going to be closed. It's not that every time they come in during the day, they're just going to open up this fence. This fence is only going to be open, and we'll call it a gate more than a fence, is only going to be open for the purposes when they need to access that back area, whether it's product that's being delivered or product that's leaving the property. So it's not the intent of the applicant to just leave this gate open during the course of the day, because that actually defeats the purpose behind screening it. So the applicant is very aware of that, this gate is to remain closed except when necessary.
Okay, I just wanna make sure it's on record that we don't run into that same problem where items are being stored outside of this particular gate when the business hours are closed. Just in the event that, let's say, someone needs to pick something up after hours and it remains there and they don't pick it up. I just want to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yep, that's not the intent. And they'll have much more room for storage, so I don't see why they would have to store anything outside. You're saying for a late pickup, but
Correct.
yeah, that's not the intent at all.
Mr. Nicol, did you want to say something?
Okay, just identify yourself on the record as you speak into the microphone.
Sure. This is Walid Nakla again. Yes, we don't do after-hours pickup. I'm sorry, there was a confusion probably. After the employees leave, we're just going to, close the gate, and nobody's going to be on site. Nobody's going to come and pick up on his own without an existence of a loader that's going to load him up. So it's only by 4:30, if my employee wanted to stay half an hour, if the truck is late for half an hour, he stayed there until he loaded and then just close the gate and leave. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe we didn't get clear with that, so we'll just ask a couple more questions. What we're talking about here are, for the most part, the stone products that are actually on pallets.
They are
Right.
pre-palletized, they come on the final form, they are being loaded as is.
Right. So it's a matter of picking up the pallet with a front loader and bringing it and putting it into the truck.
On the truck, yep.
Right. It's not a matter that somebody's coming just to pick up small items so that they can take it to their hardware store.
No, usually we deliver that with our vans, yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other board questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Aesthetically, if you are driving down Commerce Avenue, will you still be able to see the storage with this retaining wall? I don't know if I'm making myself clear. We have the gate there in the front, but if you are driving down Commerce, I'm sure you're still going to be able to see the storage if we don't have a fence on the side. Is that correct? Since we're not covering that side.
Hard to say how tall the storage might be necessarily, but I see your point, yeah, from this, I'm really bad at working this, sorry.
Joe, could you just give us an idea of, on this picture here, where the fence line is going to be, the gate line, as it relates to that stairway from the building?
Let me open mine just to confirm, but basically in line with that stairwell. I'm going back to sheet 2. Sorry, guys. That's what I'm trying to do.
What we need is either smaller fingers or bigger.
So you, all right. I think I got it now, but thank you. So you see the fence here, so it's right past the stairwell. Going back to the photo.
Joe, could you go back to your site plan for a second? Could you just tell us how many feet from the right-of-way to the actual gate/fence line, based upon this drawing?
Yeah, it's, I don't think we have it marked, but let's say roughly 50 to 75 feet. Closer to 75, from the right-of-way to the gate.
So basically, there'll be no storage within 75 feet of the front of the right-of-way?
That's correct. To answer the original question, I would say the storage would be, I'm not going to say you wouldn't be able to see it at all, but you have an elevation change here, obviously with the retaining wall. So it would definitely be at least partially obscured coming down Commerce from the school side towards the site.
My other concern is that you are by a school. I mean, it probably hasn't happened yet, and I hope it wouldn't happen, but if children were to ever leave, knowing that you have outside storage, if children were to ever get in there for whatever reason, having that gate on the side could prevent that.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I've had an opportunity to discuss some additional fencing with my client. If the recommendation is that we consider putting fencing up along the retaining wall, we certainly would consider that, and we would accept that as a condition of approval. We would ask, however, that it only be for about 10 feet or 15 feet to accomplish the, as the board member indicated, to accomplish stopping the visual as well as making it less of an attractive nuisance for someone to try to enter onto our property from that side.
So noted. Mr. Pansula, do you have any comments on that?
No, I noted that for the record. I mean, it's a good point by Ms. Martins. And I think I'm clear now as I'm formulating what I need to for this resolution. Mr. Merman can confirm. The intent here is rather obvious. The witnesses did a good job for the board to get control of this site in essence. I mean, there was a code issue. We're calling it outdoor storage. We're calling it warehousing. I understand now a little bit what Colliers probably felt about it being a D1 for the warehousing, because the structure itself is not changing at all, correct? We're not touching the structure.
That's correct.
It's a beautiful structure, or at least it shows well in the exhibits. So that's why this is kind of like an extension in an area of the warehousing, which is fine. I think the proofs, as I said at the outset, that the witnesses, the professionals, especially the planner, are for the D1. So I think you have enough of a record here to substantiate that. The condition is noted, including the Colliers review letter, which has some other particulars as well, including for lighting and some other things that are part of what Colliers would normally expect. And I would note that for the record as well, the cooperative effort that'll be expected to fulfill all those conditions as well, or obligations, as Colliers has noted them. The real handle here was not only the aesthetics of the product, but the parking and the kind of the mishmash, and I think Mr. McNeil laid the foundation for that, of where the employees park. So the resolution that I'm envisioning will reference the control of the site as the witnesses have presented it. The fencing, it's not only aesthetics, it's the flow, people not parking on the grass in the front. We've seen that in the past. It's been noted in some of the conversations and the questions. We're just trying to get a hold of that. So, and it sounds like you've done a good job offering an ability to do that. I will add for the board too, some of the parking deviations are now waivers. They're not even variances anymore. That ties into the township's upgrading of the code. They're now our site plan details. So that's even a less stringent approach that I think the engineer touched on it. In terms of existing, they used to be variances, now they're waivers to adjust the distance of the parking. So that's something you can fulfill as a waiver, and I've noted that for the record as well.
Thank you, Mr. Pansula.
Are there any other board members with questions or comments or concerns? Hearing none, are there any members of the public with questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, Mr. Berman, would you like
Thank
to
you,
sum
Mr.
up?
Chairman. Very briefly. We have, we believe, met our burdens of proof relative to both the D1 and D2 variances here. That is the most significant part of the application as it relates to the Board of Adjustment. The site plan, as we have proposed it, that certainly is also within your jurisdiction under the municipal land use law, and the purpose of this application, in a lot of senses, is to deal with the site plan itself. It is the intent of this applicant to continue to be a good corporate citizen and to continue to grow both here in Union as well as their other locations. The granting of this application will go a long way to assist this business in surviving in this extremely difficult economy, and we appreciate the opportunity to appear before the board and ask for this relief. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Merman. At this time, I believe we can conference this. Mr. Benavenga, would you like to begin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like Mr. Merman addressed earlier, this is an existing business. I think the main concern here with the board is the site appearance. As long as the applicant abides by adding that gate or fence, whatever you want to call it, to shield the outdoor storage from the street, and also follows through with the parking issues in front of the building, I see no negative impact on this application. I'm going to vote yes.
Mr. Johnson.
I agree with my colleague. Those two items are very important. and I think it's going to be an improvement to the site, and we welcome that. I will also be voting yes.
Mr. Graves.
I see no negative impact on the community, therefore I'll be voting yes.
Ms. Martins.
I agree with my colleagues. I will be voting yes as well.
Mr. McNeil.
I would also agree with my colleagues that there'll be no detrimental effects in approving this application. I do want to commend the professionals on defending the application, and I do intend to vote yes.
Ms. Ricketts.
I do also agree with my colleagues, and I intend to vote yes.
And Mr. Wiley.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to vote yes too, because I think it's an enhancement to the area as well. As long as he complies with the recommendations from this board, I have no problem with it. I'll vote yes.
As for myself, the proposed application will allow the business to operate in a more efficient manner and will benefit the applicant rather than negatively impact the property. Therefore, I will vote yes also, and I just want to commend the witnesses for their testimony. You did an excellent job. Roll call, Mr. Manguso.
Mr. Wiley?
Now, you need a motion in a
Oh, yeah,
second.
motion.
first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Sorry, I should've.
May I have a motion and a second?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board grant the variance applicable to this application, and that council is directed to prepare a resolution consistent with the board's decision.
Second.
Now, Mr. Manguso, roll call.
Sure. Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Ms. Martins?
Yes.
Mr. Ventavegana?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. McNeil?
Yes.
Mr. Graves?
Yes.
Mr. Champy?
Yes.
February 14th, the resolution of approval on a regular meeting night of the board. Valentine's Day, too, so I better make it pretty short.
Yeah, you better make it a short one.
Very short.
Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. It's a cold night. I'm glad everybody gets to go home before everything freezes over.
Thank you, Mr. Merman. May I have a motion and a second to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, there being no further business coming before the board, I move that we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.